I'm Judd Myers.
I'm Scott Tipton.
Welcome to Blast Off.
Welcome to the Blast Off podcast. I'm Scott Tipton.
I'm Judd Myers.
And one of my favorite categories of actors is there's supporting actors and there's lead actors, and there's movie stars and there's actors, but there's the hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that guy. It's that guy. You see him in everything. You know, he's in the background. Sometimes he's like the number 2 villain. Sometimes he comes in for the exposition dump. But you just know when you see that guy, it's just like a warm hug. It's like, this guy's always good. And Todd Stashwick is kind of one of those guys.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And those sort of actors, they're sort of fearless. What they do is you see them on a comedy show, and then you see them on a drama, and then you go, Is that who I think?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Was that Dracula? And that's really cool. It's even more great when they come into the store, like Todd comes into the store to, get his subscription file, and he comes in and people stare at him.
And they know him, but they don't know.
Yeah, and they kind of revolve around and they try to inch closer to hear the conversation. And his voice sounds really familiar, and they're not really sure. And I love when we talk and stuff, and he gets his stuff and he leaves, and then they go, "Who was that guy? Who was that masked man?" And then I tell them, and they're like, "Oh shit, I love that guy. I wish I would have said something." It's super cool when he's walking around in the world, and I'm not so sure that he even realizes how many people are paying attention when he walks by.
I think about Todd, and I think he's one of those guys where, had he been born 50 years earlier, he'd have been one of those studio contract players. Or it's like actor was an occupation like being a carpenter, being an electrician. You show up at the studio, what am I doing today? Oh, I'm doing high drama? Great. Next day, slapstick? Fine. I'm here to perform. I'm here to work. It's the kind of working actor I really admire.
Yeah, we cover a lot of that ground in this interview, and it really is kind of great to hear him dig in and get very personal about his history in the entertainment industry, sort of giving us nuggets and things that normally we don't get out of a conversation. He's a fascinating man. I think everybody's really going to enjoy this interview. Today's guest on Blast Off's Conversation segment started his career in the cast of Chicago's illustrious Second City improvisation group. He leapt from the stages of New York City onto television screens and has become one of the busiest character actors in Hollywood. After being the man of 1,000 faces in literally hundreds of small and large screen projects, trust me, you've seen him take a turn on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Heroes, Justified, Teen Wolf, The Riches, Supernatural, where he brought Count Dracula to life, and scores of other fan favorites. He's finally settled into the role of Deacon on Sci-Fi Channel's hit show 12 Monkeys. He created an online comic and in-print graphic novel series with artist Dennis Calero called Devil Inside. Open up your browser right now and have a look at its badassery. And as if all of that wasn't enough, he's currently writing a licensed Star Wars video game for Electronic Arts that is going to absolutely knock you out. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Todd Stashwick.
I went to Loyola University, and about a year and a half into that, I was miserable. And
Because?
Because, I had my heart broken. I had dated a girl my freshman year and was still pining after her my sophomore year, and that wasn't going well. And the distraction of, I went to school in a city in Chicago. So the distraction of the city itself was making me not do well in my classes, and I had a scholarship taken away from me, and I was feeling like I was just treading water in the theater department there. And then I had an epiphany, which is, I don't have to go back. oh, I'm miserable there. I would rather stop and regroup and figure it out at the ripe old age of 18 or 19.
Were you paying for school by yourself?
No. My folks were paying for it. And I mean, I was covering other things with the money that I made from working. But I think the most important thing I learned from going to Loyola University was I could leave Loyola University. That was a big thing. Also, it was interesting because I could not find my place in the theater department because I had come out of high school being like the guy in that theater department there. I was the lead in the plays. And then suddenly you're in with grad students and you're suddenly, and then I was cast right when I got there. I was cast as the lead in Bus Stop, and I was in way over my head. They didn't offer an acting class to the freshmen, and yet they cast me as the lead in their play, and all I had was bad high school habits, and I continued to be reminded. And I also entered college at 17 because I was an October baby, so I was super young. And so then they took my scholarship away from me, and then I remember this guy Tom Studer. He was a grad student, and he saw kind of a spark in what I was doing, just in my tastes and who I was. And he directed me in like a 10-minute Eric Bogosian monologue. So it was like a directing class projects. And so he directed me in this monologue. And Bogosian does these very gritty, funny, dark story-driven characters. And
I saw him. I think Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll.
Yeah, it was from that.
Yeah.
And I got on stage like 3 weeks before I was leaving, and I did this piece, and I crushed in front of all the faculty and all the students. I crushed, and it was almost like a stand-up act, but it was a character-driven stand-up act. So it was a monologue. And then suddenly, as I was like knowing I was leaving, it was like I was walking out with both fingers in the air, and the faculty are like, "So you're seriously considering leaving?" And I mean, I'm like, yeah, bye, see ya. And the act of knowing I was leaving, combined with doing this piece, was such a wind in my sail.
It was an aggressive choice, and you committed to it.
Yeah.
After that, you took time for yourself?
I moved back in with my folks, and then I went because I couldn't get into Illinois State University, but I could get into this private college, which was Loyola University, because I suck at math. And so in my high school, you were allowed to substitute math classes for science classes if you wanted. Like as you got older in the grades, you can go, okay, you can take a math class like advanced algebra or something like this, or you could take a science class. I'm like, screw math, I'm taking science.
Yeah,
because I hate math. And so I couldn't get it. My first college choice was Illinois State University because all the teachers there were the teachers that taught all the Steppenwolf students, all the people that formed Steppenwolf. Gary Sinise, John Malkovich, Laurie Metcalf, all those people had come out of this theater department at Illinois State University, and a good number of those teachers were still there. And I'm like, well, proof is in the pudding. I want to go there, but I couldn't get in. Like I was denied access to a state school because I didn't have the math credit. So I went to Loyola. So then I was like, I'm hell bent for leather. Is that a phrase?
It is.
Okay. I'm hell bent for leather.
It's a Western phrase because it really suits you well.
Yeah.
Because I can just picture you on the horse with
whipping it. The vegetarian pacifist whipping a horse. So I was like, I'm going to get into ISU. I want to get into that school. And so I moved back in with my folks and went to a community college to get that math credit that I didn't have to get into ISU. In the meantime, I did stand-up comedy, and I won 2 competitions, and I did a production of Biloxi Blues for community theater. And so I just was like, it's like I went into solitary and just started doing push-ups. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I went to ISU to finish out my education. They still didn't know what to do with me there. But I knew what to do with me by that point, because I knew I was like a sketch comedy guy and a Second City guy, and I knew my tastes and my strengths and my wants.
You've talked about things before. You've done podcasts before. There's a lot of information out there about, you and your background with Second City and being and your improvisational roots with some extraordinary people.
Yeah.
At a time where
I hope it works out for them. Got my fingers crossed that they might make something of themselves.
And knowing you like I do now, I see you run into so many people all the time. You know so many people. You've touched.
This is a college town. It's like one big campus, and I've been in this town heading towards 17 years. So you just start bumping into the same people and people you've worked with and people you've just know through auditions. And then lob onto that 6 years in Chicago, 5 years in New York, and just being part of underground theater scenes and Second City and all that. And then it's like, it's like, how rainfall washes all of stuff into the ocean. Well, the pursuits that I had in the Midwest and the East Coast, it all eventually washes us all down. The plastic bags and the hypodermic needles of the industry.
That was such a pretty picture.
Yeah, we all get all the foam of the creek, if you will.
You're in a town where it's a steel town, and entertainment is the steel. Yep. So all of you are workers. And
number one American export is entertainment. And I very much see it that way. I see myself as because I grew up, my father fixed machines and, he built decks and sheds and fixed cars. And I wasn't that guy, but the process to which I approach my art was always a very methodical blue collar process. Oh, I want to be on Saturday Night Live. I got to do Second City. Oh, okay. In order to try to get that, I got to get that part.
Right.
I got to get that. I got to hammer that down, And so you drawing the analogy to a steel town, it's like, that's oddly, I see this as a very blue collar pursuit.
It's funny because we were just talking about, we're sitting in the comic book store right now,
yes,
by the way, just in case you don't know, the Blast Off Comics in North Hollywood, California. We were just talking about Daredevil and Punisher and street level heroes and how you relate to, like, you really enjoy street level heroes. They have some kind of little power, but they're not about, I'm going to another reality, I'm going into outer space. I'm about this person on the street that's getting robbed.
Yep.
And after a long day, I take my clothes off and I live in an apartment that doesn't have air conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Wayne Manor.
Or there's that.
But I always see Wayne Manor being super cold. Like Batman just keeps it cold.
Well, he hates being there. It seems like he's always, when he's back at Wayne Manor, it's like, I got to be here.
Yeah.
I got to eat the sandwich
that's
given to me.
All right.
I gotta
keep going though. Christopher Reeve's Superman doesn't really count because that is its own thing that what year was that? 78?
Yeah.
So I, as a 10-year-old boy, loved, right? And ran around the yard with a cape. But even with, say, Star Wars, I'm Han Solo. I'm not a Jedi. Mm-hmm. Give me a blaster and a wrench to fix the Falcon and an engine that makes it go into hyperspace. I never played Force powers. I never played Jedi. I don't know what that is other than the gotta make it myself thing. I gotta build it myself. And it was a long time before there was a Lucius Fox in my understanding of Batman. So I always saw him as, that's why it was great when you showed Christian Bale with the sharpening wheel, sharpening his own batarangs. Mm-hmm. And like, there's something about like putting on the welding mask. And again, I'm not handy that way. Like I don't actually, the joke in my family is that, I did not inherit that gene. Like I'm not hammer handy, but I am like learn Photoshop, build the poster for the play that you're putting up in the 40-seat basement with your friends that you rehearsed on your own time. Great. And so I think that extends into the heroes that I read and I like is that I can insert myself into that fiction. The escapism to me is the problem solving, and I like a theatrical villain, but I don't want one necessarily flying unless he's got his jetpack that's making him fly. Do you know what I mean? I love Batman and Joker. Like, there's no powers except their wits and his, fists.
Well, the villains you play sort of reflect
they don't have
that.
Powers.
Yeah.
They don't have powers. And it doesn't mean I don't like to escape. Obviously, I like escapism in fantastical worlds, but the characters that I connect to are the more human, not blessed with too many abilities characters.
You seem to be really happy with who you are and how you seriously like these are the type of people that I play. These are the kind of things that I like. These are where I can use my wits and I can, my quick thinking, and living in a town where everybody seems to be trying to define themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. They're putting themselves into these baskets.
And that's rewarded, though, too, in this town.
Yes, if you commit.
I'm a comedy guy.
Right.
I'm a this guy. Ride the horse in the direction that it's going,
right.
But I was having a conversation when I was working on a show called The Riches and working with Eddie Izzard on that show. And Eddie used to always, because Eddie hammered out his comedy on the streets of Edinburgh and London, and he would do shows outside of venues before he was actually, him and a partner would do street theater. And so when he understood that I was, building my own theater in Chicago and doing Second City and touring on the road for 2.5 years, he always referred to it as Todd, like me, went to comedy school. And then Eddie at one point said to me, you have to pick a lane. You have to pick a lane. And you'll ascend faster if you pick a lane. In terms of clout, I guess is the best way. Not necessarily fame, but clout in this town. That sort of currency of being able to do the projects you want, how you want, being invited to the party quicker and more often. And he told me that, and I was on a drama. He's like, you should pick comedy. I think you should pick comedy. And I just was like, I don't want to pick. I'd like to be the funny guy maybe on a drama. Like, that's interesting to me, but I like being able to do it all. But that being said, at almost 48 years old, I still kind of feel like I'm getting warmed up. It did make the road like much more Lombard Street in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a straight line. There's nothing about my career that's been a straight line. But because I didn't pick a road, like after I didn't get on Saturday Night Live, I was up for it in 95. And then I came here. I'm like, I'm going to do sitcoms. I'm going to pick a road. I'm going to do sitcoms. But then I started getting cast on Buffy and Angel. And,
right.
And those worlds intrigued me. And so he may have been right, but not right for me.
Do you think that how you were seen, like your friends from way back, your gypsy days,
they're not over.
They're not still happening.
No, I'm still a gypsy.
Would they look at you and say, "Oh yeah, that's what I expected"? That's
what my high school years, or like
no
actor friends.
Yeah, actor friends. Like once you started to commit to being an actor, an improvisation specialist.
I think nobody was surprised when I got into Second City because I wasn't an athletic kid. I was a Joker kid doing impressions and being silly and doing bits from SNL and Monty Python and all those things. I wasn't athletic, so I was little. I was like 4'11" when I started high school, so I had to be the Joker kid, and not had to. I chose to be the Joker kid because I saw I was getting rewards. I was getting my family laughing at me and my friends cracking up and doing bits with them. And the secret language of comedy people, when you're not being heralded on the football field in high school, having an auditorium room of people standing up after you've done a performance is pretty potent. Nobody I went to high school is surprised that I'm still an actor. I think maybe a lot of the comedy people that I came up with might be like, oh, that's a fascinating road that you went down, instead of Like you brought up earlier, all the the Tina Feys and the Amy Poehlers and the Adam McKays and the Steve Carells and the Colberts and all the contemporaries that I was swimming around in Chicago with in the early 90s. We were all in Second City at the same time. Those guys locked down and said, comedy. And now they're hosting the Golden Globes and have Emmys and all of those things.
And you don't regret that. You don't.
I don't because it's my life, and there's
regret is useless.
It's useless. And second, there was a part of me, the Star Wars kid in me, that was just as loud or louder than the funny boy. The need to be Han Solo was just as loud, if not louder, than the need to be Bill Murray. So now, when I look at the role that I play on 12 Monkeys, I'm Han Solo via Bill Murray.
That's very true. It's a mashup.
Right? I get to be wry and sarcastic and sardonic and provocative and irreverent like my heroes. But I still get to run around in a post-apocalypse with a machine gun fighting a conspiracy of time travelers. It's like, what? It's crazy.
Would you say that this role that you're playing right now, of all the roles that you've played as the young kid pretending to be Han Solo, does this connect to it in a way that other roles haven't?
Oh, by far. And then working on the video game, by far, like I am, aside from, a good chunk of my life where I was looking down the corridor of wanting to be on Saturday Night Live. Put it this way. I've probably watched Star Wars 100 times more than I've watched Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Both beloved films to me, but one makes my soul sing and the other one lives in my heart, but it doesn't vibrate my being.
Right.
And I think telling epic mythical stories with complex characters, with humor and pathos, that is far more rewarding to me. And that, again, it just to get to this point, took a very weird, circuitous road. If there is providence involved, at a certain point, you do feel like I might have been plucked from the headlights, the oncoming traffic, and spared for a second. I think about how fragile I was at 27 when I was 26 when I was auditioning for SNL, 26, and how fragile I was and how impressionable I was. And
you weren't married yet, were you?
Yeah. No, I was still living in Chicago. I was dating my current wife.
Yeah.
But I was very fragile. I was very worried. And if I had, at that point in my emotional existence, been put through the spanking machine that is Saturday Night Live, I don't know if I would have survived it. I might have gotten fired after the first season. I don't, you know what I mean? That I had done. I don't think I was ready or cut out for that world. My skin wasn't thick enough then. And living in New York and producing theater that we did in the Lower East Side of Manhattan and taking the F train and performing more people on stage than are on the audience, like that. And this was after Second City.
Was that the Burn Manhattan days?
Burn Manhattan days. So that was where I developed my skin. So while my girlfriend was living in her own apartment, waiting tables close to Union Square, and I was bartending in Hell's Kitchen and doing my improv group with these alchemists, these amazing people that made me look so good and I learned so much from, and I don't get to see nearly enough anymore. But we learned that sex makes babies. So
are you listening out there?
Apparently,
listen.
It's not
closely.
a PSA. It's just science. I told you I took science classes but didn't apply it at the time. But apparently, no. So that's reductionist. I mean, this was my girlfriend of 3 years. So, and there was just that moment of, I'm not a child. I'm 29 years old. But the circumstances of one's life would not say, hey, this is the best time to have a baby. I'm a struggling actor bartender. She's a struggling writer, waitress, living in 2 separate apartments. Yes, and we said yes and faced some blinding white terror and a whole lot of fear. And I've told this story before. We got married in the middle of Times Square with her being 7 months pregnant and it being the mid-90s. There's these great wedding photos of her with the word virgin over her head from the mega store behind her. And she's got
the pre-Disney days
7-month belly on her. And then when my son was like 6 months old, I got fired from the bartending job. And it was like, oh, my only steady form of income. And so that was kind of another seminal moment where I drew the line in the sand and said, I need to quit Loyola again. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go and try and find another waiting job. I've got to do something else. As I pithily put it at the time, I don't want another job where my hands get wet unless there's a lot of zeros on that check. Right? And I could have been a hitman. So I just immediately scrambled and started teaching improv classes and all these people, because I was doing an improv show and people wanted to learn the style of improv that we were doing. And so I started hustle, build it yourself, go into the basement, start sharpening those batarangs. And so I suddenly was teaching 3 classes a week, making 3 times as much as I was bartending. And I was working 9 hours a week, which opened me up to be able to go on auditions. And going on those auditions with a newborn at home, he's all I cared about and she was all I cared about. So I couldn't give a crap about what these casting directors, no offense to them, but I just didn't care their opinion of me. I didn't have that panic of money because I was making ends meet. We were living in Queens. I was paying my rent. My lights were on. There was food in our belly. Fine. So I could go into these auditions without needing the job and say, screw it. All right. And just taking huge risks and being irreverent and being all the things that I'd been training myself to be and not caring, not overthinking anything. And then suddenly it was like, book. I think in my life, I've done 32 national commercials. And by the time I left New York, I had done a bunch of voiceover, national commercials, and all the Law and Orders. Like I just hit this streak and then moved to LA kind of with a pilot. Like I had booked a pilot and I was like, it's time to leave New York because I'm going back and forth too much.
Throughout the year, every year, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I've got an episode of this, I got an episode of that. I'm doing this show, episode of this, episode of that. Making your health insurance, making your money in the bank, whatever, saving for your kids' college education. And then you hit a show where there's like 20 episodes. It's like, all right, this is where I live now, which is what's happening to you now.
Yeah. Again, for the first time in 8 years, 7 years. Yeah.
But the point is that if you add up the year of all of those one episode, you've done 20 episodes and more than most of the people in this town could ever imagine doing an entire career. But like you just happened to do it on different shows with different characters. It just wasn't all on one show.
Yeah. Had it been on one show, the paychecks would have been so much better.
Sure. But putting aside the money, the point is that the work is just you're consistently putting your foot in where you have to put your foot in.
You know, it's going back to the conversation that I had with Eddie during The Riches and going back to the Chicago training in Second City. Second City, I was 23 but playing an 80-year-old guy in a scene. And the reason that I was able to go to have the list of shows on my IMDb is I studied classic theater. You know, I studied my Stanislavski and my Uta Hagen and my Shakespeare and, you know, Beckett and Sam Shepard and all that. And I studied my...
Sam Shepard. I could see you in a Sam Shepard. Oh, my God, a Sam Shepard play?
And then I studied then I went to Chicago and did my Viola Spolin and did my Del Close in Second City and Improv Olympic. And so when I came to L.A., I was double wielding. So it's like, you want me to be a villain on your drama? Great. You want me to be the wacky next door neighbor in your half-hour sitcom? Great. Because I didn't pick a lane, because I didn't say, I'm only going to do comedy. there were casting directors in this town that didn't know I did comedy, and there were casting directors in this town that didn't know I did drama. So you could break my IMDb page in half and go, this half is sitcoms and this half is dramas. But because I never picked that lane, I was always making sure that I could dial it in no matter what the audition was. Oh, okay, this is for Law and Order. Okay, well, that's a different kind of procedural than CSI, which is a different kind of, like knowing the genre of the kind of show that I was in, I knew how to dial in my audition. This is a single camera sitcom. Okay, great. Well, that's a different kind of performance than a multi-camera sitcom. Okay, great. And I could dial in my audition for that. And so my lack of picking a lane opened up all my options, and it never pigeonholed me.
Do you think your improvisational background, your skills, improvisational skills, helped also in your life, the choices you make as a father, as a husband, I'm walking down the street making a decision to do this, to do that. The sort of what we call in business, we call it recognizing the pivot. You see it coming. Mm-hmm. The pivot is going to happen, and so I pivot in the right direction. Yeah. It's just a way of a muscle that you build. Yeah. And there's so many people in this town they do improvisation, they do comedy, but it seems like the moment they step off the stage, they have no compass. It's like they can't even figure out a way to have a life.
Thank my folks for that. My mom and dad, my mom had this mantra that she said, well, if I give my kids nothing, I want to give them a sense of responsibility. And so, there's that lovely cliche, enjoy the art in yourself, not yourself in the art. So I never really got caught up in an art scene. It was more about, what do I got to do? That? Okay, I'll do that. Boom, going back to that blue collar thing. So the ability to pivot meant me licking my finger, seeing where the wind's blowing, going, okay, great. They want me to be villains. I'll do that then, because I got to eat. I got to eat. I remember interviewing with 2 different agencies in New York, and the first agency, like I sat down and said, okay, we're going to nurture your career, and then we're going to do, and then I sat down with the other ones, and they said, we'll help you get jobs. Great. I don't have a career until I have jobs. A career, I guess, is a certain. When I say, I think at a certain point in a career is when you are able to pass on something. Then you have a career. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But before that, you don't have a career until you've had a body of work. And then you can look at your body of work and go, I liked doing that more than I liked doing that. Mm-hmm. So because of that body of work and certain offers start coming in, I can say no to these and say yes to some of these. It's like McConaughey is such a beautiful example of that. Like, he hit a point where he's like, I'm done just taking jobs. Not to say that he didn't want to do anything that he did prior to the pivot, but he did sort of. And I have the lovely distinction of being in the film that one would say was the nail in the coffin of the last version of Matthew McConaughey before the McConaissance, which was Surfer Dude. And after that film, he did Mud. He did True Detective. He did Lincoln Lawyer. He did Dallas Buyers Club. Yeah. He pivoted because he's like, I got enough comfy money. I'm going to only do stuff that's quality to me, stuff that speaks to me as an actor. And I think it's working out for him. Yeah. And he's doing commercials for cars. But, not because he has to, but because it's kind of cool and classy and fun.
Right. I just was interviewing Carl Gottlieb, the guy who wrote Jaws. That little tiny movie.
Fish picture.
And he was telling me about his, coming up from childhood to where he ended up. What he said was, because I'd asked him, I said, what are you writing? You're not working on something for someone right now. What do you like working on? What do you like? And he said, nothing. If I'm paid, I will write. I don't wake up in the morning and write a novel. I'm being paid to write, and then I write. That's what I do. He said, you do you sell comics all day, every day? Do you walk around the streets in the supermarket selling comics? No, you go to work and you sell your comics and then you go home. And I said, well, that sounds great if you're writing all the time. What if a year goes by and you don't have? And he said, well, that hasn't happened yet. So I
don't have an answer.
I don't have, yes. But what
That's a riot.
Yeah. What he said was, I decided at a certain point, he was a stage manager. He was hanging lights. He was like, doing whatever he had to do to try to make ends meet in San Francisco. And he said, I woke up and I decided that I was never going to take another job that didn't have to do with entertainment.
I had the same moment.
That was it. I was never going to do another thing. And he said, so I don't care. I would carry wires around for people. I would go, hang some light somewhere. I'd do whatever I had to do as long as I was in entertainment on the set around all of these people and these writers and these actors. You never know what skill
sets, connections you're going to make.
Yeah. What he said was immersion. It's the only way that you can really learn, and that is to immerse yourself in.
Well, it's funny. My parents, I remember we went to a restaurant called Carlos Murphy's. I think it was around the time that I was deciding what I was going to major in college. And it was foregone conclusion that I was going to major in theater. And they said, my mom asked me, and she only asked me once. She said, do you think you might want a backup major? Just to ask the question as a worried mom. And I looked at her and I said, I think if I gave myself a backup, I'd take it. So I got to seal off the exits. And that's what I did. Because, and a lot of people have brought this up, and I've spoken to this, I don't know where, but I've spoken to the idea that people go, isn't it hard to accept all the rejection that comes with a life in the arts? And I said, there's kind of only one rejection that I couldn't handle, and that would be the one I would be doing to myself by not doing this. That's the only no I couldn't handle. As far as I know, because I have no proof or experience otherwise, we go around the block once, right? Life is hard either way. It's going to be hard. Yeah. So why not? So rejection isn't hard. It would be harder for me to look in the mirror and go, I didn't do that. I didn't go down the road I should have gone down. I didn't pursue that which made the spheres of my universe sing. That would be harder. And so sealing off the exits made that a reality. Truth be told, it's like I had been given enough positive strokes from joking around as a kid to doing plays in church, to doing plays in junior high, to doing plays in high school, to being the lead in high school plays. I had enough people going, yeah, your horse is riding in that direction.
Yeah, they were confirming
just
what you knew.
Yes. Yes. So I was at a wedding this weekend or last weekend, and I dance at weddings. I dance. Michael Jackson comes out of me and I dance, and I am throwing down and sweating like a piggy. And afterwards, like the grandfather of the bride, I was outside, and it was at this lovely resort in Michigan, and there was a moon river going on. Like it was a lake, and you could just see it. And I'm just cooling off, and I'm sweating. And he walks up to me and he goes, I saw you dancing out there. He's like, you were really good. You're like really throwing down out there. He goes, I suppose that's because you're an actor, right? And I go, no, I think I'm an actor because I dance. Like, I think that, thank God there is a career for the insane soup that I am. Thank God. Because I was able to take my need to tell stories and my need to be silly and my need to play characters and my need to move around and change my voice and be, and thank God there was a career called acting, because it matched my skill set. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that was it. It's not like I'm a good dancer because I'm an actor. It's like, no, I chose to be an actor because I had all this anyway.
Right.
So So I had to put it someplace. And the thing that made most sense to put it in, and originally I was going to be a cartoonist. I was going to be a graphic artist. I was originally going to go to school for graphic art. I drew a ton as a kid. I drew Batman. I drew cartoons, Garfield and Popeye and Bloom County, and drawing my own characters and my own comic strips.
So at what point did that change? Like, did you...
When I could not handle critique on my drawing. In my art class, somebody would come over and they would critique that which I drew, and I would say they were wrong. Because this is the inside of my head and I executed it how I wanted. So you're wrong. You cannot tell me the inside of my head is wrong. Screw you. I'll keep my drawing for myself, but I had no trouble taking direction as an actor. I was acting at the same time, kind of, around the same time. And I'd always been play acting in the backyard, with my cousins, being Han Solo and Indiana Jones and all that. And action figures, not dolls. No, they're action figures, Judd. But I didn't have a trouble because that felt so, and it was louder, right? And it felt so collaborative. And I'm a social creature. I want to be around other people, and I love making things with other people, and I love seeing how we come together and it almost falling apart, and then it just like soaring, they say crappy rehearsal, amazing opening night. That transition happened around sophomore, junior year of high school is when I stopped, because I was taking art classes and doing theater at the same time. But the transition of going, I kind of just want to keep my drawing for myself and draw my pictures without having somebody tell me what they think of them. Because I never wanted opinion on my drawings.
Did you continue drawing? Do you draw now?
I do. Not as much as I probably should. Not as much as I should, but I do. And I draw for my kids. And my son is going into that professionally right now. So I passed it down. But what I did do a lot of was design the posters for my theater companies, design the posters for my shows, learn Photoshop, draw those posters. So I did keep up that need for graphic design. And now working on this video game, I'm working a lot with these amazing concept artists. So I get to use my artistic eye and feel through a moment and feel like, that's maybe more of this. I'll try that. Oh, it would work. So that muscle keeps getting used. But I'm toying with an idea because I have an idea for a short story, but I may do it kind of like Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children, which I just found an entire set on eBay.
It's good stuff.
I know. And I bought it. I bought all 30 issues.
Well, you have to. You can't just get some of them.
So good. And this is the beautiful irony of it. They were on sale from Chicago Comics, which was my comic book store where I used to buy Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children.
This is not a mistake.
So I have an idea for a short story that I may just choose to illustrate and then put the text in the margins. Not quite a comic book, but like more, here's a single drawing and here's the text, and here's another drawing and here's the text. I may do that.
Obviously, everybody should check out Devil Inside.
Which I do not draw.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying everybody should check it out because you can go directly to his site and view it for free.
Yep.
And Dennis Calero does this very cool, evocative artwork with likenesses, and it's just very interesting.
Yeah, it was basically our way of casting a TV show without having a budget to cast a TV show. We wanted it to feel like something you'd see on FX or AMC. That kind of grounded, and then along came Preacher. Wop, wop, wop. I mean, it was around before, but I hadn't read it. I told you that story. I had not read it. And then when I read it, I'm like, oh, wow. Talk about, but all the same early influences, I suppose.
Yeah. And are you going to...
I was a Vertigo kid.
Yeah, me too. Oh my gosh. The whole thing about Preacher was the idea at that time to go to the comic book store and pick up Preacher and be, laughing my ass off. And next to me, there was some guy buying Superman because on the rack P. And then it made me laugh so much. Like, I cannot believe this is on the same comic book rack.
And the same publisher.
Yeah. It was
That's
just
the beautiful thing
yeah.
about Vertigo. I was a Sandman, Hellblazer kid. Like Sandman blew my mind. And so when it came time to write Devil Inside, whether I knew it or not, I was writing early 90s Vertigo. That's what I was writing.
It feels like that. And that's great stuff.
Yeah. And then I read Preacher and I was like, wow, there's a lot of similarities, having not read Preacher at the time. So I felt kind of compelled to read it so that I could step around landmines, because enough people that were reading Devil Inside were telling me, wow, this reminds me of Preacher. I'm like, does it? Okay, I should probably read that then. And I did. I was like, goink. But it's still my own story, and it still comes from what I want to say.
But reading comics, how early did that start?
I remember.
What was the first comic you really remember reading that?
Probably Electric Company Spider-Man comics.
Nice. Spidey Super Stories.
Yeah, and I think I remember reading those, and I remember most, like, my earliest memories were Dr. Bruce Banner turns into the hit by gamma rays, any unglamorous. Those, when I was a boy living in the city Chicago, watching the Spider-Man cartoons and the Hulk cartoons and then Thor. Mm-hmm. I remember those cartoons, and then Adam West's Batman.
Sure.
And then I think there was an X-Men comic, Something Saves, Mutant Kills, something.
Oh, God Loves Man Kills.
God Loves Man Kills.
Yeah.
I remember reading that, and I remember the cover was like a swing with the word mutant on it.
Yeah.
Or no mutants, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I remember reading that. And then, I got to find this now. There was this great comic called Camelot 3000.
Yes, now you're talking.
Yes,
Mike Barr and Brian Bolland.
I got to get a hold of that again.
Oh yeah.
Do you know? You probably dig one up.
You've got
you're my hookup. But I remember reading that and just being like, "This is amazing." And then, in the same way that Star Wars was a thunderclap in '77, The Dark Knight Returns, and then it was over. It was over. It's like, then it was, the holy trinity of The Killing Joke and Watchmen, like boom, boom, boom. And then I was in. I remember reading Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and this was all 80s and 90s. And then one of my close friends in college was also a big Batman guy. And so we just, sort of fed each other's love. And I was also a Dungeons and Dragons kid. And I mean, I was that guy. Atari, like I was Stranger Things.
Right.
That was me. I was a Spielberg Lucas kid playing D&D. I was the cliche that is now out there. I am the Comic-Con target audience. But Dark Knight Returns, and then I have the greatest Joker stories ever told. Did Sienkiewicz do the cover, or was that Chaykin?
It was Sienkiewicz. It was.
With the smoking gun, and you see the feet.
Yep.
I had that, and then I had the greatest Batman stories ever told. But I was collecting on a regular basis, monthly Sandman, and reading that. And then I should bring you, I have my collection of Sandman trading cards.
Oh, wow.
In the binder. It's not complete, but that was one of my life when I was doing Second City Detroit. Every Saturday, I would go to their comic book store in Detroit and get my next packet of Sandman trading cards.
So you've been doing that your whole life, going to a different town, doing your work, and then looking, where's the comic book store?
Yes.
Where's the nearest comic book
store?
It's
like a junkie. But it's so funny because I go to Comic-Con and I go to these, and this came up in that other thing that you and I were interviewed for. I'm not a statistician. Like, I could not tell you, well, issue blah, 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 and Elseworlds, blah, 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 Earth 2, da, da. I don't know that stuff. Like, I consume the stories and then I move on to the next story. Mm-hmm. I consume the story, I move on to the next story. So I don't have that kind of brain for it. I just like reading comic books, but I don't have the retention for that stuff. But I've read so many. And I go to the next one and I want to read the next one and I love being there. I just don't have that. I'm not an encyclopedia and I'm not, the history of it escapes me. It's very much in the now. And I very much like being in comic book stores. And I very much like purchasing comics and reading comics. But when I see these people who've who know this stuff, I'm envious. It's the same way that like people know sports stats. Like, I don't have a brain for that stuff, but I have, like, when you put it that way, I go, yeah, comics have kind of always been around for me. Always. But when I look at other people, I go, oh no, they're a real comic book fan. They're a real comic book fan. And it's weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I've always been, and it's because you and I have had this conversation a lot. I'm a DC guy more than I'm a Marvel guy. And I'm not even a DC guy. I'm a Gotham City guy.
Right.
I love Gotham City. I love the characters and the villains that come out of Gotham City. And I love the stories that come out of Gotham City. Very much like it's that when I was a kid living, because we moved when I was 7, we moved out of downtown Chicago and we moved to the suburbs, which was a great place to grow up. The Spielberg. I got my BMX bike, I got my hat, I got my puffy vest.
Leaves falling.
And my 20-sided die. But I always, like, the city was this romantic creature of darkness, always. And I just could not wait to get back to it. And then I remember coming out of the subway or the L train and seeing the Sears Tower. I'm like, I work in the city now. I'm studying at Second City, and I'm waiting tables at the Hamburger Hamlet, and I'm a city guy again. And then I exhausted Chicago for myself. I'm like, now I need New York. That's the city I need. I need grit, and I need I got married in the middle of Times Square. Like, that's one thing that Marvel just does not have. They don't have the character of a city the way Gotham City is.
And it's wonderful that I just put Brian Bendis's Daredevil run and Garth Ennis's Punisher run on the counter for you, because you get to now explore a New York City that is very much like what you're talking about,
like
which what we see on Netflix and stuff. But yes, it is inspired by that.
Well, you could see obviously with Daredevil, they were chasing their Batman.
Yes,
yeah, clearly.
For sure,
and that's fine.
Yeah,
But what I like about Gotham is because it's not New York and Chicago. It's not bound by the rules of those cities. So it can be its own unique. There's nothing like Gotham City.
Right. Even the design it's a mishmash of all of these, old Gothic structures and yet brand new, just erected buildings.
But that's true of any city.
Yes.
But I just love, and that was the most exciting thing about doing the TV show Gotham.
And playing an important villain.
Yeah. Or the prelude to an important villain,
right? Ultimately.
But that's what that show is.
Yeah.
But at 2:00 in the morning, standing in the Bronx, but it was Gotham City. Like, my brain, the actor boy, the 9-year-old in me, it's like, I'm in Gotham. And I've had those moments where I'm like, I'm on Vulcan. Like, sanctioned, not cosplay, like sanctioned. The people that call this Vulcan have appointed me to be a denizen of right now. So I get to be like, I'm a Gothamite in the canon of things that have been Gotham City. Those are priceless moments for me to go, I'm in Gotham City right now. It's amazing. And I love Gotham City. I love the Arkham video games. I get to run around Gotham City. I love, like I said, the villains that come out of Gotham. I love real crime stories with a theatrical hero who dresses like a bat or a bird or a cat, and a villain that's insane, but maybe not too many powers. Maybe he's got a gun that could freeze you. Or an umbrella that shoots darts or bullets. But I really like when Batman goes up against the mob or goes up against a serial killer or goes up against that. And then maybe in the meantime, Penguin's, in his ointment. That's what I really love, those stories, and I want more of them.
Isn't it interesting that you play roles? That's what you do for a living. You love video games. You go and imagine playing other roles. You play roles at play. You work at being a role player, and then you, for leisure, you're a role player.
Yeah.
It's sort of really, considering the percentages, the greater percentage of your life is spent
Make believe.
in make believe.
Yeah.
I mean, how wonderful is it that you've structured a life so that that's what happens. That's just the nature of it.
Well,
and real life kind of intrudes on that.
Yes and no, because this is going to get real heady real quick. So stop me before the pretension meter breaks. I am part of nature, part of the real world. I exist in it. My brain is part of nature. So the external world is just as valid as the interior world. And make-believe is a conversation that we are having with all of our experiences meeting all of our new experiences. So literally, and this is a fascinating article I read, I don't remember who wrote it, but literally the act of dreaming, which is make-believe, right? Mm-hmm. It is our imagination, is a survival skill. And how some theoretical people speak of dreaming, I don't know if this is founded, but some people believe that a dream is seeking patterns, because if we can recognize patterns, it aids in our survival. So if I can watch the gazelle zig and then zag and then zig, I can get predictive of where it's going to zag next so that I know where to throw my spear, take it down, and eat, right? Our ability to recognize patterns is key to our survival. So what happens when we dream is a lot of our past experiences and our current experiences, our brain is looking for patterns in those two to see where we may have been successful and or not as successful. Mm-hmm. So it is creating a visual pastiche of experience so that we maybe better can problem solve while we are awake, right?
So basically role-playing is a form of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm sorry, I put it into what?
No, you absolutely did. So, and that's what it is. It is, look, it's why we watch television, so that we can go, oh, that person went through something. Mm-hmm. And I also think for the stress relief of it all, because I'm not a stressful person, but I live life and I live a busy life. Mm-hmm. And so normal stress just builds up in you. But if I can go to a movie and be moved to tears without actual loss in my real life,
right,
I am relieving that stress. And when actual loss happens, I might be better prepared to be able to process, continue, provide for my family, do all the things so that I don't hit a wall of grief. So when actual tragedy hits, I go, okay, well, I'm learning things by experiencing other people's lives, other people's stories, other people's looking at the patterns that they do and see where those things led them.
Right.
Playing a video game is problem solving, constant evolving problem solving. And mythological structure, if we want to get into Joseph Campbell, the reason that we connect to it, the reason we connect to Star Wars is because it resonates with our subconscious. It resonates with our dreaming self. I look at my experience in writing this video game, the Star Wars video game, has been the story of Star Wars. This woman, Amy Hennig, came to me, offered me this opportunity. Maybe fear, like, wow, that's something I've never done before. I've never written a video game.
You were somewhat reluctant.
Call to adventure. A mentor called me to adventure. And I said, yes. So acceptance of the call. Now, I am then brought up to A&E to a world of programmers and concept artists, the special world. I've entered my cantina filled with aliens to me. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, yes. So I think we all go through these patterns. It is our life pattern. We as being younger people, when we have mentors, we could refuse the call, we could accept the call, we could do this. So that when we see these stories play out on the screen, whether it's the origin of Spider-Man, whether it's this, that, it's because it resonates deeply on the human experience, period. And that human experience is told to us in our dream life as well as in our waking life. And so do I spend a lot of time in fantasy worlds? Yeah, but no, because the fantasy worlds are connected to the real world too, in that humans invented them and humans are part of nature. And in the same way that a honeycomb is something a bee made,
right?
like
right.
it's all nature.
Right.
It's all the real
you
world.
have a lucidity. You know that I'm still me, and I'm daydreaming about this thing.
I don't have a psychosis.
Right.
I'm not in that Tom Hanks movie, Mazes and Monsters, where I've lost touch.
Oh my God, did you just
I threw down a Mazes and Monsters reference.
I can't believe you did that. Oh my God.
Which is this cautionary tale
all
against
these memories just flooded all over me.
sitting there, snapped from reality, sitting
Feels
on that
awkward
thing,
little Judd is here again.
Right?
Him on the roof.
I know. Was that Robbie Benson? On the roof?
No.
With
It was
the PCP cautionary tale. I can fly.
No. It was Tom Hanks.
Oh, right. And then the Minotaur coming at him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, no, I clearly, I think we have a need, whether it's religion or music or comic books or literature. We have a need to speculate. We have a need to self-examine. We make our cough syrup taste like bubble gum, right? We need to tell each other stories. We need to. And so, well, part of we need to is to prove our existence. I need to tell you this story so that I know I'm here. And so that if you validate my story, then I'm here. It's like, I think that's the need for fame, because I think fame, so many people want to be famous because they think if I get to a certain stature, somebody will want to trade places with me. Somebody will envy me. And if they envy me where I'm at, that means I'm here.
Right.
It validates our existence, which is funny because the older I get, like obviously when I was a kid and wanted to be Bill Murray, I want to be famous. And then, it's like the kid wanting to be in the rock band to meet girls. But then along the way, it became about the art and the story and the getting it right. I want to get it right. I want to entertain myself. I want to tell the story in the way that I want to see it, because I have tastes that I want to express, and I have ideas that I want to express. And so I think,
the strive for fame,
right,
is it seems to me, the strive for fame is a grasping for as much love as you can possibly get, and
security,
right?
Because along with fame, people see money, and if money's already there, I don't have to worry about food or shelter, or any of that. Yeah.
And you're surrounded by people who love you.
Right.
Everybody loves you.
Well, I'm sure there's people that don't.
Well, they're not listening to this. So. But you have that in your life. It's not like there's some hole that needs to be filled with, if I just get this love, then everything will be okay. There's a big difference between what you strive for and what someone else it's that you get that fame and then what?
Yeah. Well, and that tale has been told over and over and over.
Yeah.
And for me, and I have not achieved fame in my career, part of me goes, I can see where the clout to get a project that I want to make greenlit, to get the funding to do a project, to look at 5 scripts and go, I want to do that one. That can be pretty nice, I imagine.
Sure.
And I'm not there in my career as an actor. I still audition and I still, pitch my projects. I don't have a writing deal somewhere where that I think could be, that wouldn't suck. And then the money that comes with it, it's like, I would like to be able to, like I have the dream of having a branch of Blast Off Comics in Taos, New Mexico, and in the back, an improv studio, and in the front, a coffee shop. Like,
wow,
I want that. Like, that would be awesome. And then go off and do a movie.
Right.
But that takes money, and I would like, money means being able to travel, and money means that kind of thing. But for the most part, like a few years back, I kind of stopped watching the Emmys. And I kind of stopped, last year was the first year I didn't really watch the Oscars. And like that stuff as I get older, fell away. And maybe for better or for worse, there's definitely something to be said for the fact that, Tina Fey is a producer on Netflix series after she was a producer on 30 Rock and was the head writer of SNL. And Tina Fey's next project will get made. I'm still trying to sell a screenplay. You know what I mean? So it's
sure.
That would be a new experience on another level. And that's why I say at 48, I still feel like I'm getting warmed up.
Well, there's a hell of a lot of time.
Got a lot of time. I'm a kid.
There must also be something freeing in that you have a child who's now going to college, off to school, which changes the dynamic in your home, even though you have a circus of animals. When I was looking through a bunch of stuff about you, there was the whole thing about the Carney, the sideshow, the Coney Island, and I just thought the insanity of Coney Island, the insanity of that time period.
Yeah.
Of just it
probably smelled terrible.
I'm sure it was terrible.
What I love about all that, again, it goes back to I love being delighted in ways that I didn't expect. And so therefore, I want to delight in ways that other people aren't expecting. And so when I think about, and I'm not a roller coaster guy. I like some. Like all the roller coasters at Disneyland, I can handle.
Right.
But I physically don't like going upside down. But I love the idea of a roller coaster, and I love listening to the people scream on roller coasters, and I would love to design a roller coaster and watch people ride it. That's exciting to me. And so the idea that whether it's George Tillieu or Walt Disney or somebody can go, I'm going to create a place where you just are submerged, that the guy that Coney Island was great because you had people from, you had the poorest people and the richest people and the great equalizer. Like you're not rich and you're not poor if you're both screaming on a roller coaster. You're all the same human being being thrilled. Or if you're sitting in a scary movie, you're not rich or you're not poor. You're just delighted and scared. And then the credits roll and you're safe. Like again, field testing those emotions. I love doing that and surprising people because I love being surprised and I love being delighted. And I love being able to take people because I am in that lovely place in my career where I just get to do that. I waited tables and I came home exhausted on the F train when I had a 1-year-old, exhausted and tired, and there's got to be a better way to make money. And I'm supporting 2 people and just so I worked in the service industry for 15 years of my life. I'm now at the place where it's been longer than I've been out of the service industry than I was in it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And cast no aspersions on the service industry. It just wasn't for me. I mean, there are people who are noble waiters in their 50s and 60s.
There are people who are waiters right now making more money than we are.
Yeah, and it is. I do not look askance on any career, maybe drug dealer. But hey, if there's a demand. There was a little moment in my life where I found my acting as what am I doing? What not what am I doing? I didn't see the value or the worth. I thought there are people who are running into war zones to run out with children to save them, and Doctors Without Borders and curing cancer, and I'm saying funny things on ABC. You know what I mean? I just thought but then I'm court gestures are necessary because we are the pressure valve so that the guy that is jumping in to forest fires can come home that night and go, that guy's funny. Or that was scary. That was cool. Or may the force be with you. Right? We need those escapes because it's a beautiful world. It's a horrible world.
Right.
It's profound and profane.
There's a healing to it.
Yeah.
There is a healing
It's campfire. The need for story is huge.
Yes. And which is, in bringing back to the comic book world, I often tell people I don't sell comic books. I sell memories. And a good illustration of that is a couple who came in and It was very typical. The wife was sort of, kind of tapping her foot a little bit, and the husband was trying to hurry up,
right,
and get his stuff accomplished. And he was looking at all the things and asking about prices. And then his wife said, you keep these things in these boxes in the closet, and they're just in there. You don't really take them out to look at them. Why don't you sell them? Looks like you can make some money. You should just sell them already. I mean, why are you holding on to them like this? And he had this look on his face like, this is a thing that just keeps coming at me all the time. And so I said to her, don't mean to interrupt, but do you have a lot of photo albums in your house? I mean, I do. I've got photo albums.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We get books and photo. You take them out every day to look at them? No. Yeah, me neither. Sometimes I go years without looking at them. In those boxes, those are his photo albums. When he takes out those comic books, it's a memory. He remembers his bicycle. He remembers the girl he liked. He remembers the bell bottoms he wore. He remembers what his mom said when he got the comic book and that he raked when he finally got the money to do it. Everything, without even opening the first page, all of those memories are in that comic book.
Yep.
And those are his boxes. And even though he doesn't take them out, he knows what's in them.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the pictures that are in there, and he thinks about them in his mind. He sees these pictures in his mind. That's what's in those boxes. And she said, I never really thought of it like that. And he looked at me and went, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you said to me, because I buy my Batman statues and I buy my Star Wars statues. And you just looked at me and you went, totems of power. That's it. They are in my house to inspire me.
Mm-hmm.
Because in so many ways, children are pure. They're devious and they're mischievous, and sometimes they can be mean, but their clarity of purpose and intention, if they weren't horribly abused, is pure. And so when I look at Han Solo, I connect back to that going, I could be anything. Because at 8 years old playing Han Solo, I was him and I could be anything. And so to remind ourselves of that need, it's a mantra. And it's also, we talked about this. It's a tribe. Mm-hmm. It's a tribe. Us Star Wars kids it's a tribe. So I can go online and I can immediately connect with people about Star Wars or about Batman. And I can come here and this is Cheers. I can come to this comic book store and I'm not just coming here to pick up a book and leave. I'm coming here to celebrate creativity and bitch about that movie that I didn't like, or celebrate that Netflix show that I just watched, or talk about a project that we're working on or you're working on. And it's home base. It's a campfire. It's a place to be. And so the act of going to the store is my life too.
Yeah,
that's part of it. Like, not just getting the thing and going home, because I got stacks of books I ain't read yet.
Right.
But the act of finding a new book recommended to me by you guys, and then being able to pass that on. Oh my God, what are you reading right now? Oh, have you read Saga? Like, you know what I mean? To somebody else.
Right.
And then I think, and again, that's why Comic-Con is just can be kind of wonderful. I mean, because I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from in the trenches as a creator, trying to get people to read your book and sell your book and like and then mixing it up with the hardcore, because I'm an artist alley, like the hardcore fans that come in there knowing who they're looking for, knowing what stories. I'm like, that's Jay Lee over there. And I've been to the A-list Hollywood party at Comic-Con.
And doing press junkets.
Press junkets and talking about my show that has a ton of fans there to see us. And, but like, what a wonderful thing to celebrate. Like, there's a crap ton of ugly in this world. And so why not? Like, this is good. These are good things. These are positive things. And so let's all gather and celebrate them.
These are the places that we make choices to go to. And I often say this about the shop. You have to go to the store to buy food for your family. You have to go and buy clothing so you can cover yourself. You don't have to come to the comic book store.
No, you do.
You choose to come to the comic book store. It's a choice you make.
I'm going to, from where I stand,
junkie that you are,
say I need the nourishment.
Right.
This is food. This is food for my family. My little girl sits over there, and that's necessary. This is woven into the fabric of her childhood now.
You have no idea what that means to me, that I watch her have memories that she's building right there in a chair. We had our own memories that we built in the comic book store.
She's got her little Blast Off shirt.
Yes. And it means so much because it, in a way, because I don't know what happens after we die, and I don't really care because it's
none of my business.
But I know this memory, if there's anything that is longevity, and it is immortality. Yeah. It's memory passed down, and the fact that one day she might be an adult and she might think back and tell a story about, I was with my dad. He used to take me to the comic book store, and there was a little table there, and I sat there and I read these comics. I remember Adventure Time. I really liked Adventure Time. It's not even about me. It's about there's an actual memory that has been put inside of her brain.
Yeah, well, that's what we talk about, because we go to Star Wars Celebration, and we've gone as a family, and my daughter dresses up as Rey or Sabine or whatever, and I realized that singular property is a perpetual nostalgia machine, because for me, I hear the opening blast of The Crawl, and it's 1977, and I got socks up to my knees, and I've got a striped tank top on, and I've got shorts on, and I've got a Slurpee, and it's 1977. Yeah. And me and those feelings that engenders in me, I want to share with my child. So we watch the movies together, and we go to the conventions together, and I'm reading her these Star Wars books. So now it's an important part of her childhood that when she grows up, she will want to impress upon her children the importance of Star Wars.
Right.
And then that will be in her children's DNA when they grow up, like, Disney's got it made. They knew what they were doing. $4 billion? Yeah, here, George, thanks. Like, it's a perpetual nostalgia machine.
Right.
And for me, like, being able to now with the video game contribute to that experience and create new Star Wars for somebody on whatever level I get to do it. Who'd have thunk?
It's part of the DNA of it now.
Holy moly.
That's fascinating.
It's crazy.
I'm really sort of stunned that you, from very little tiny Todd all the way back, just coming through the years, weaving, fighting, bobbing, coming, all the waves and all of that, coming all the way to now, and going to the ranch and being inside the belly of the beast. Yeah. And saying, I've got a role in this. You're playing a role in the
mythology
the mythology. You're part of the mythology.
Yeah.
We can't know how that happens, but I do know that it's got to be a consistency of vision. With my daughter, there are a lot of parallels. You talk about the sharing and with me, she's grown up in my stores, so she's grown up around all of these things that I do and that I live every day. And she reads and she draws. And I remember with the Star Wars thing, I remember there coming that day where she said, I think I'm ready now. I think I'm ready to watch them now. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, which one do I watch first?
There is only one.
There is, yeah. And I said, okay, look, here's what's going to happen. Like, we're taking the whole weekend. Like, it's just going to be our weekend together. And we're going to be in our pajamas, and we're going to we're going to have popcorn, and we're going to, that's what we're going to do. And it was such a oh my gosh, if only that I had that, if only I now have the opportunity to give to her what I didn't have.
Well, that's,
and be able to say, or she has questions, so many questions. And to be able to go, well, you're asking the right guy. I'm right here for you.
Well, it's like the moment when you go, my children, the Beatles.
Right.
Like you get to have these moments in your life where you go, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like we're waiting on, she's got to be 10 before she can see Raiders.
That's, yeah. Okay. Yes. That makes sense.
I didn't see it till I was 12, I think, because of just when it was released.
Yeah.
Obviously, kids are more savvy now at younger ages, but still making her wait on Raiders. Making her wait on Raiders.
It'll be worth the wait.
I know.
I mean,
because now she's building it up.
Do you ever daydream about one decision you made that took you in a direction? And do you ever daydream about that moment where you went, if I'd made a different decision and gone in a different direction, I would have become this, perhaps, and then follow that and really imagine it to a logical conclusion. So not like time travel where you could go back in time and make a different choice, but actually moments, because I have some that I can't get out of my head where I go, why did I make that choice? Do you have any that are consistent for you that keep popping up?
When I have engaged that exercise, I never like the road that it takes me because it's a wonderful life. It's the Zuzu's pedal.
The Zuzu's pedals. Yes. Oh my God. That's why my daughter has ruined time travel for me. She has ruined it for me. I can no longer imagine.
That's exactly it.
It's a brick wall. Yep. It's that like improvisation. It's the no. Yep. There's a wall of no's. It's there's in every reality she doesn't exist.
Yep.
I am unwilling to accept that.
Unbearable. So, in answer to your question, have I done that? Yeah. I'm a human being. It hits a brick wall. The minute where you go, oh, if I did that, then I wouldn't have met my beloved wife, and I would, that sucks. That's just selfish, gross, dark life of suckage. I don't want that life. I had a rough couple of years, but not Syria rough. I constantly have, I don't know, Protestant guilt.
You keep,
where I go, no matter how bad it is, I recognize I am fortunate beyond words. But life is a relative experience. I look out of these two eyes. So things have been hard and confusing in the past because you get stuck in the mire and struggle and money and all the things. But yeah, it's just like this too shall pass. Like it's smoke them if you got them, because the good times aren't always here and the bad times aren't always here. You know,
right now for you, the good times are very much here.
They're here.
And I'm sort of a reflection of, for you, of going, I'm watching your children grow up to be really interesting people.
They're fascinating.
I'm watching your relationship with your wife sort of blossom, and and you're going to concerts and
together 23 years and still not bored.
And still going and
23 years together, 19 of them married.
That is very difficult.
Not easy
to find that and to hold on to it. Your career is starting to do something that, for me, I'm watching you like, okay, I'm doing this thing where I'm Han Solo. And that's really, people are really digging it. Like,
on 12 Monkeys.
On 12 Monkeys. Yeah. And I'm also, I got my hand in the mythological DNA of the Star Wars. Yeah. Right now. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
So, like, I could stop there. Like, just that is such a wonderful, boiling time right now.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to come of it. But the point is that right now, it seems to me that if there was ever a time for the child like you to be just overflowing, it's right now. Everywhere you look, there's something that's calling back to the origin of you.
Yeah. But it never wasn't. There was something that my wife just posted on Facebook. It says, the person that said life is a journey was wrong. Life is a dance. And it is our reason to be is to play. That's our reason to be. Our reason to be. How to be. To keep going is you got to eat and you got to sleep and you got to stay in shelter and you got to protect yourself from disease. But the reason you eat and sleep and protect yourself from disease is so that you can play. Because otherwise there's no other reason.
That, to me, is a really good point for us to wrap up.
Works for
because
me.
that is really, really perfect. I hope you were all listening to that. And if not,
It's not me.
That's what the rewind button is for.
I didn't. That's not me. I was just I'm gonna. We'll find out who said that. But
Doesn't matter, man. I say
truth.
things all the time. Like, you say things and I repeat them. I don't give you credit for it.
But we stand on the shoulders of giants. We are the sum of our influences, right?
I appreciate you spending the time here. What I'm trying to do here is not everybody has a podcast, but I think what we're trying to do is people getting together and sitting and having a conversation is actually becoming a rarity. Just like people mailing letters to one another is becoming a rarity. There's an intimacy to it that we lose from email and things on our phone and our computers. What I'm striving for here is not a podcast, but a conversation where we come together and we sit, and what we talk about are important things and good things and things that people may or may not be interested in. But the point is, the exercise is that we come together in a place and we speak to one another in close proximity.
I love it. And we could not be in a better place to do that.
It's a great environment for it. And I really look forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah.
So thanks again for taking all this time.
Thanks for having me.
With me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
The Blast Off podcast is produced by the Colonel, Jeff Fox, Scott Tipton, and me. Original music is composed and performed by Derek Anthony Gray. You can find more of his musical compositions on his website, DerekAnthonyGray.com.
For more information about anything you've heard us talk about today, check us out online at blastoffcomics.com. We have an active Facebook presence, so check us out over there on Facebook. And you can reach us on Twitter at blastoffcomics or on Instagram.
Or you can come by our retail location in North Hollywood in the heart of the Arts District, 5118 Lankershim Boulevard in North Hollywood, just 2 blocks south of Magnolia. See you soon.